What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Unnamed Horror Podcast. I am Aaron. That at the bottom is Amy Lynn. What's up, Amy Lynn?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. It's been a minute.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And up in the right hand corner is our guest, Will Reed. Will, dude, it's awesome to have you on, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So, Amy's known you for a while. I think I've gotten to meet you one time in person, but we've talked a lot on like Facebook and stuff. So, um, let's kind of just get started with when did you discover your love for movies? And you've done so much stuff, acting, editing, directing, and so we'll get into all that. But when did your love for movies actually start?
Pretty much since I was a kid. Whenever I was young, that was what I always gravitated to, was just watching movies and playing video games. And I think I knew like extremely early on that I wanted to be a filmmaker and kind of be in that space by any means necessary. And so I started being in plays and stuff with my church whenever I was really young, maybe 8 to 10 and stuff like that. And then I started going off and trying to make my own movies on my iPods and iPhones whenever I was about 13 and 14, and got more serious about it when I was 15. And so I've really been in it ever since.
So the first thing I saw you, like, I don't know if you remember the story. It's been a few years back, but I contacted you the first time about being, and I guess it was Canine. That's what it turned out to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as I started talking to you, I went and looked you up on YouTube, and I found your first Batman film. I think at that point, maybe The Killing Joke was the only one that had been out.
Mm-hmm.
But you did an awesome, or no, actually, I think Under the Red Hood was out too, maybe.
Yeah.
But either way, you did an awesome job playing the Joker, and you also wrote and directed all three of them, right?
Yes, sir. And thank you so much.
The Joker is my favorite villain ever. So I was like, how is he going to do? I saw the screenshot of you, that I guess the thumbnail of you on YouTube as the Joker for The Killing Joke, and I'm like, God, he looks really good. I wonder how he's going to do the acting. And then your acting was phenomenal. So kind of just talk about how you got into being the Joker, and where did you find Mason Scott? Because he is awesome as Batman.
Well, thank you for saying that, because that was a ton of trial and error. I started making my own like iPhone movies whenever I got more serious about it when I was 15, and me and my brother would make them. And then whenever I got done with the first little kind of movie we did, I immediately knew I wanted to do The Killing Joke, a fan film of The Killing Joke, because I had been watching a ton of fan films and just thought, well, we should give that a try, because all of my favorite comic book stories hadn't been made in live action at all, whether it be in the real movies. And then I tried to start finding them in the fan films, and I found out a lot of fan films were original content as well. And so I wanted to see live action versions of the comics, because I felt those were the best storylines to adapt. And growing up reading books and comics, I always thought, with like Harry Potter and stuff like that, I wish more books had the Harry Potter treatment, in a way where there's so many great stories out there, but they get done so dirty whenever they try to get made into film, because they think the book itself will transfer over, and like because of the name of the book, the movie will be successful. And a lot of stories get damaged and just like really simplified, or lose a lot of its meaning or nuance. So I wanted to take comic books, which were typically shorter stories, and then flesh them out over longer movies. And even if they didn't get fleshed out, at least you would still get an accurate runtime according to the comic book that would have all the story elements and all of the things you wanted to include, but also gave you wiggle room to like go into stuff more. And so I started I always loved the Joker, and he was my favorite villain too. And I just always wanted to act, so I just casted myself in whatever I wanted to play. And so I just wanted to play Joker, and so I just like obsessively kind of worked on a bad impression of him based on Mark Hamill until I got to a point where I thought I was more comfortable with it. And then we probably filmed like 3 to 5 scenes or trailers for The Killing Joke that never saw the light of day, and I never want to see the light of day, because it was just like, and this goes to how we got Mason. Mason was a good friend of mine growing up that we would act in plays together in high school. And up until that point, Michael Case, who is like pretty much my brother, what he was playing Batman at that time. But we were like very similar in build and height. And then Mason came along and was just like more naturally Batman. And then down the road, we found out that Michael was just so much more naturally Red Hood and Jason Todd. And so Jason Todd was the guy who plays Jason Todd in our movies. He was originally Batman, and we had a horrible costume for him where the original white eye slits were toilet paper, because like we couldn't figure out, and we tried to use gauze and we tried to use toilet paper, and we just couldn't figure out. So he couldn't see. And then we filmed it anyways with like a cheap $20 like Ruby's Batman mask with like toilet paper taped behind the eyes for the white eye slits. And it looked horrible. And I have that scene somewhere. So maybe or maybe not, we'll pull like a Deadpool and Wolverine post-credit scene and end off the trilogy with all the crazy B-roll that never made it in, and all the crazy bloopers that never made it in. But we filmed the first Joker interrogation probably 2 or 3 times. We filmed Barbara Gordon's death, or not death, her getting shot by Joker scene like 2 or 3 times with different actors and actresses playing Barbara. And then even after the first movie, we recast both Barbara and Gordon again. So, and now we have our cast that's like always returning, and will be returning for Court of Owls. But it was just a ton of trial and error. And at the end of the day, it's like we were just like silly enough to, but I do like really respect it, and it made us it made me who I am and made us who we are in these movies. But like, we just went out and made the movie anyways, and then released it anyways. And it is very goofy and very silly, especially compared to now. But like, even now has its goofiness and silliness, because it is what it is, but it's fun and we love it. And literally every movie, we look at everything and are like, okay, how can we get better at this? And now everybody's turned into this professional version of what we were doing. So it's night and day from how we were doing the first Killing Joke movie, but the energy of being on set and the fun we have is still the same. It's just, we try to make it more professional so that we can have more fun. Because back in the Killing Joke day, we didn't know what we were doing. We'd get together after school if we could and film, which that's fun and great. But when I'm coaching how to say every line, and then no performance is good because I'm recording everything, every line, and telling them how I want it said instead of how they would say it, it was just like, it's a miracle it ever came together. But now I think we have a really like a much more fine-tuned process, and it'll be even more fine-tuned going into Court of Owls. And it'll just be a lot of fun, but it's always been a lot of fun.
Well, that last few minutes, the big Joker speech at the end of the Killing Joke was just, I mean, that was awesome. I know you're going to be a little harder on it because it's the first thing you did, and you said you obviously, I mean, you can see it just from an untrained like fan watching it. Each movie's gotten better, but
Thanks.
but still, like that ending, the big speech at the end the Joker gives is just awesome. I love the way you performed that, and everything you did as the Joker in that one, and then each one, like when, spoiler alert, when the Joker gets killed off, I'm like, no, because I want to see the Joker come back for more movies. And then you come back and Heart of Ice is sort of a nightmare dream sequence thing. I'm like, okay, as long as we get Joker, I'm cool with that. Because you're the ending of as good as much as I like the Killing Joke, the very end is my favorite part. Like the last few minutes of the one-on-one, and then the big speech the Joker gives at the end, which I guess is part of the comic. I honestly have not read the comics, so I didn't know if it was part of the comics or not. But
yeah, it's my favorite part of the comics, and that's how it ends. I tried to do that scene pretty much almost word for word with the dialogue, but I really wanted that scene to be in live action, and so it was. And I'm like very proud of that movie, because I remember back when we filmed it, it felt very like emotional. It felt like we were acting, and it like for the first time kind of, and it felt like when we put it together in the editing room, like, I don't know, I was getting like emotional and stuff. And not to say that it was like a wonderful performance, but it was to be able to have the moment where the movie's ending is there and it's done and it's the last thing we did. And then I was rushing everything at that age. So it's like, okay, export it and upload it. This is incredible. And, but it definitely was like, I think that was where we first kind of got our magic going, as far as feeling like we had really done something and that people actually enjoyed it, and it like made you feel something. Because, for as crazy as it was, we were there, and we were lucky enough to film at the abandoned dog patch amusement park before it started renovations. And so like Mason was there in his bat suit, like really actually kicking down doors and like, storming this abandoned like building for me, and like fighting people through an actually abandoned museum. And I think that was one of our like, I think I'm still like proud to this day of how that movie kind of ends with the fight scenes and the Joker monologue, because that was what I really wanted to like capture in The Killing Joke, is that relationship between him and Batman. And then I was never going to make another one because the ending is supposed to be ambiguous. But then I thought like what actually would have happened, had Batman continued on, because I personally don't believe Batman would have killed him. And I personally, and from what I've heard about the guy who wrote The Killing Joke, there was a lot of things that he didn't like about the storyline and the comic. And even though I love it and I respect it, I was thinking, well, what were like the creative ways that I would go with this story? Like, what do I feel like Batman did? What do I feel if I were to make a sequel? And even down to some of the characters, like who do I think maybe should have more backstory or something like that.
Hey, sorry guys, my internet's really wonky sometimes, so I lost you guys for a second.
No,
I had
you're
to go
fine.
to another room to get closer to my freaking router.
No, you're good.
But Amy Lynn, did you ask something? You want to go ahead and ask something now?
Nope, I'm listening. I enjoy listening to Will talk. Truly, he's so talented. It's like everything he does amazes me.
No,
I've had the opportunity to work with him on several projects, and I'm always looking forward to the next one.
Well, thank you. You too. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to those, like especially Voorhees, which is, as far as your acting goes, I love the stuff you did with the Joker, but the stuff you did as Mark and Voorhees was awesome too. So we'll definitely get to that at some point. So you finished The Killing Joke. How long was it after The Killing Joke before you started to go into Under the Red Hood?
It was a long time. I never thought I wanted to like do another one again. And then my roommates were just kind of talking to me about it one night. and we were just, I think I just got an idea of where the story would go. And then it just hit me out of nowhere that Michael should be Jason Todd. And so I called him up, and the kind of the rest of the movie series lives and dies with Michael, in my opinion, because I called him up and I was like, do you want to be Jason Todd? Because I think you're perfect for it. And I think in my mind, if he would have said no, I wouldn't have done it. And then he said he definitely wanted to, and I think it became a dream role of his. And he really just embodied it and was incredible. And so I think we made The Killing Joke whenever I was 15 and maybe released it in 2016. And we didn't start making Under the Red Hood until I was a sophomore in college. So it went from, that must have been maybe at least 5 years. And then after we finished Red Hood, because we finish every movie as definitively as we can, with the exception of Heart of Ice. And after Red Hood, I think we were kind of like, let's make another. And like kind of a baby thing. And then we just went and did that with Heart of Ice. And Heart of Ice was supposed to be like a 15 or 20-minute short film that was supposed to be a technical test for how we did Heart of Ice. And it just became a whole little movie on its own. And so now Heart of Ice is just another step in it. Or yeah, Heart of Ice is another step, and it's no longer even a technical test for Court of Owls, because Court of Owls will look completely different now because of how Heart of Ice went.
The cast you get in these movies are pretty incredible. Like in The Killing Joke, you had you had you and Mason, but then you go, next movie. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank, and I just said the name of it. Under the Red Hood.
Fine.
You had Buddy Campbell as the mayor. You had Mark Mitchell in there as a cop. Your casting just gets like better and better and better, bigger with each movie. And of course, with Heart of Ice, you got Jason Pitts as Mr. Freeze,
Mm-hmm.
which he looked awesome in that costume.
Mm-hmm.
So
That costume.
yeah, he looked great in that costume.
It's a fun costume to put together, I'll admit it.
Yeah, I had no clue how we were going to do that. And then I was just so happy whenever we started putting everything on, and it wasn't like oh my gosh, how are we going to fix this in post? It was like hey, that looks like Mr. Freeze. Like, that's what's up, because there is so little reference to how to do a live action Mr. Freeze whenever you start diving into it and you don't know anything about wardrobing or costuming. Because so I went into a bunch of like cosplay as far as like cosplayers' take on Mr. Freeze, and I combined a lot of them with concept art and kind of what I knew that I could find on Amazon, because or just like online, because there's a lot of armoring that gets kind of sold, and whether it's for motorcycles or like LARPing or whatever, or cosplay, like there's like people still make armor, and they still make even plastic armor or leather armor or chain armor or whatever. And so I kind of thought, like, what would Mr. Freeze's suit actually be? Because in the comics and in the only live action adaptation of him, which was a massive budget, it was like made to look like an action figure. In the comics, it's either very like cybernetic or very, high tech and futuristic. And so when I was thinking about it live action, and it would be him recovering from an accident, it would immediately be like a controlled hazmat suit, the bubble, so that he can have his own like atmosphere, and then armor on top of it to protect himself whenever he started doing his dirty work. So that is how we kind of built the armor, was like, well, what's the story of it? whenever we found that, it was like, oh, so then we need to get a hazmat suit and make a bubble for him and get some armor. And that's how we finally figured out how to do the Mr. Freeze suit. And then I don't know how we're going to upgrade it for Court of Owls yet, but that's why we'll actually have a costuming person.
Well, how do you decide what villains to put in which movie? I'll admit I don't follow the comics.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a certain order they go in or not.
No, there's not an order. And the comics are a lot like the movies now. Whenever it comes to like, there's so many different versions. There's so many different universes. There's so many different like costuming and people. It's just like right now, you know, you've got different Spider-Man and you've got different Batman in movies. And that's how it was in comic books for such a long time. And it still is that way. So I go with like, a lot of the times it's what villains I want to see in live action. You know, what are the villains that sometimes I'll like meet an actor or an actress, and then just because I'm a nerd, I'll immediately be like, wow, you'd be really good as so-and-so, so-and-so. And that's happened recently, and I don't want to spoil too much for Court of Owls, but there's different villains that have been added to Court of Owls that I'm like, well, I kind of want to add everybody. Who am I even going to add? But I also don't want to muddy the story because I threw a lot of villains in Heart of Ice, and I instinctually want to throw a lot of villains in Court of Owls, but I need to figure out who works and like how they play into the story. And so right now, a lot of it is just like, a lot of times, honestly, it's just a great coincidence or fate or God's plan, because I will literally be thinking, what kind of like, I want this villain. Try not to spoil anything, but I'll be like, I want this villain. Who in the world can play this villain? And then all of a sudden I'll meet somebody and I'll be like, oh my gosh, it's you. Like, and one that's already happened with that was when I met James Stokes for Deathstroke, because Ben Affleck's Batman movie was coming out and it was supposed to be him versus Deathstroke. And so I was so looking forward to that, and everyone else was. And then it gets canceled and scrapped, and we all just get kind of left in the dust. And so I was like, no, I still want to see that. And even though like it's not Ben Affleck and Joe, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his last name right now, who's great. Like, since we're no longer going to get that, because I don't want to repeat something that's already been done necessarily. I want to bring it to a new medium or bring it new. And James Stokes was just the perfect Deathstroke, and Mason has become a perfect Batman. And
definitely,
and the reason why I say become is because that's the story that we've written, is like the Batman you see in our like movie arc. He goes from being, he's so young age wise, but like he'll go from giving up the mantle young, going into complete retirement, to stop Joker and protect Joker and protect others from Joker and allow the rest of the Bat family to like save Gotham. He'll do that. But then whenever that doesn't work, he comes back for Heart of Ice and is in a completely new prime. So like Mason has kind of, he's so down for the role that he will shape whatever story he wants to fit. So, you know, for the first Killing Joke, he was just regularly, you know, kind of like the Batman that we wanted. And then for Under the Red Hood, he was completely retired and had long hair. And then in Court of Owls, he got extra jacked and then cut all of his hair off and got and we didn't cover up his tattoos this time. And it's just a new Batman. It's just like a new era of Batman. And we're going to get that in Court of Owls, but it will be because of a direct impact of what Heart of Ice has done. So, yeah. I know that was a long answer on.
No. It was the perfect answer.
Well,
Like I said, I love listening to you talk because you're so talented.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I know I'm saying that a lot, but I do. I really do.
Are there any other arcs, I think it's the word I want to use,
Yeah.
that you're wanting to add to the Batman story, or any other, like, yeah?
Yeah, a lot of them have to do with villains and anti-villains, like people that Batman. A lot of it in Court of Owls that I've been writing the script along has to do with kind of Batman's relationship with people that he doesn't view as heroic, because he has, even though he himself is a very flawed character and he does do a lot of good, he does live behind his own morality of killing for almost any instance is bad. And so, but he's so much more strict on that with his immediate family and friends than he is with, like, let's say police or other superheroes that he doesn't get to work with regularly or something like that. So seeing his reaction to his own killing rule and seeing like how other people view like other people can view self-defense as different things, and seeing the relationship with like between him and Jason Todd, because now they're back to kind of working together every now and again, but like Jason still kills and Batman still doesn't want him to, and so Batman will still like stop him and fight him even though it's like his own son pretty much. So I think Batman just like going along with his own morality and learning everybody else's morality and like trying to convince others of like, we should put a stop to these criminals, but like we can't be the judge and the executioner. But and then it's like, well, does that apply to superheroes? Does that apply to the police? Does that apply to civilians? Or does that just apply to you? And so that's like kind of an arc I want to explore with Batman, and that the court will kind of be like testing him on, and the Court of Owls, and the rest are just like real relationships and dynamics with other characters, like Talia al Ghul and like what is their past, and Deathstroke with what we saw with the post-credit scene, like why, like what is going on with them. And there's a lot of backstory with all these characters, and I just kind of want to show that all these villains and all these characters that are interacting are people too, and they have their own justifications for doing what they do. And so it just gives me a lot of room to play with lore that I know so well, and that I honestly don't have to create from scratch. I just get to kind of research and then, put into my script however I want.
For your movies, do you have a creative process that helps get you going and get you in that zone?
Yeah, I can't necessarily force something. A lot of times, like if I'm getting a creative itch and I don't have any like good movies and I want to make a good movie, like I will try to start creating stories, or I'll try to start improvising stuff. But if you really just like, for me, if you don't have the gas to do it, you just aren't going to do it. But it's important that when you're walking around and the moment of inspiration comes to you where you're like, whoa, that is really interesting, to write it down and to come back to it later, because that's pretty much what has been keeping me going whenever I'm trying to be like, what do I want to make? Oh, I remembered this was a good idea at this time. I should flesh this out. And then I'll look in my notes and find that. And another thing is when writing a script is it helps me a ton to listen to music that fits the atmosphere of the stuff I'm writing. So I'll go on YouTube or Spotify and I'll either find ambience for whatever sort of like world I'm trying to create, or I'll like find music that sounds like the world or the movie that I'm trying to make. So writing Batman gets easy for me because I'll just put on Batman music and I just like my brain just starts going down a Batman story. So those things really help me a lot.
Any questions,
The
Aaron?
original Batman soundtrack from '89 is like one of my favorite. Like I used to own it on cassette tape when I was a kid. That's how old I am. I had cassette tapes back then. And then it came out on CD, and I bought the CD and just wore it out because I used to listen to this, just the soundtrack, not even the songs from Prince, but just the music that Danny Elfman did for those first two movies. Really,
Yeah.
There was just like the very end of the first Batman when he's up on the top of the building looking at the bat symbol, and the way it just kind of crescendos into this big like orchestra piece, and it's just awesome music. So I could totally see how listening to that would get you into like it gets me like almost pumped up for some reason, like makes me want to put on a bat suit and jump off a building or something. I don't know.
Exactly. Because you start getting those. I always get like a visual for either whatever I'm thinking or whatever I'm listening to. So like if you're imagining kind of like your own music video or whatever or your own movie whenever you're listening to that, which is what I'm always doing, that is, I'll just write that down or I'll just try to flesh that out, because that's like a great way to kind of feel that you're in the world that you're creating. You can literally listen to it. And if you constantly have, I can't concentrate if I constantly have real life noise all around me, bringing me back into a world that I'm not, trying to create or anything like that.
How did you get into slap fighting? The whole slap fighting thing.
Well, I grew up around the same time I started doing movies. I watched Rocky. I watched the Rocky series through, and it just fired me up like one day or whatever. And so I started getting into boxing and learning how to like kind of defend myself, because I used to get bullied. And then I just, after I kind of was just like self-teaching myself and just scrapping with my friends and stuff, I found like a jiu-jitsu gym in Harrison. And then from there, I found that gym also offered MMA and kickboxing. And then we had an associate gym in Branson. And in Branson, which was only 30 minutes from Harrison, they would host fights. And so my teammates would go and fight. And we would also go up there and train. And whenever I would go up there and train and watch the fights, the coach of some of the fighters at one of the gyms we were associated with, his name is JT. And he also was a promoter for a lot of the fights going on in Branson. And so growing up, he would coach me every now and again whenever I would go and train with them. And we would always see each other at the fights that he was promoting. And so I would just always go to his fights, and then we would become we had mutual friends. And then I would always tell him, if you ever needed anything, or if you ever had a job opening for any sort of graphic design or film or editing or anything like that, please let me know. And then I got older and went to college for film. And I saw that some of my old teammates that were fighting in those promotions had started competing in slap fighting. And it had gone super viral. It had gotten like millions and millions of views. And then that old teammate of mine had become the champion of that organization. And so I didn't like it at first because I didn't understand it. but it like really intrigued me. And then I was really proud of my friend for becoming the champion, because he always wanted to do that in MMA, and it just, you know, life happens and he didn't. But in Slap Fight he did, and now he had 3 million views all of a sudden, and I was like, holy cow, that's crazy. Like, good for you, man. And so then over time, he just like kept talking to me about it and said he was like thinking about, you know, coming back and defending his championship. And I was wondering if he was still doing it or whatever. And so that's really all I had kind of heard about it. And I was like, well, that like, you know, that probably like gives people CTE, that just like, you know, smacks them. It's just free smacks in the face. But he never went down. He never got knocked out, and he never knocked anybody out either. They were just going to decision and winning. And so that kind of like I didn't expect that. And then JT hit me up one day and said, hey, we've got these slap fights. We'd like you to come and film them. And so I came down to the undisclosed location because they're underground. And I filmed the slap fights, and ever since then I've been hooked. And all the worries that I had as far as, you know, is this dangerous? Is this free CTE? The answer is yes. The answer is yes, it is. But it is, in my opinion, as much as any other of those boxing shows or MMA shows or kickboxing shows I've ever been to. And the bluntness of it is crazy. And it's like the bluntness of it, like the spectacle of it is crazier than actually giving and taking the slap. Because back in the day, you know, sometimes we would have unlimited round slap matches, which is crazy, but it was awesome. And it was crazy in a good way. We knew that. But the world record went like, oh my gosh, I think 27, 28 rounds between two friends of ours, Wolverine and Darius. And when that happened, I didn't know two human beings could do that. They never got rocked. They never went down. They were slapping each other as hard as they could. And they would have gone on for the rest of the night. They would have gone on seemingly forever if we hadn't have stopped them and declared a winner because Wolverine's eye started swelling. But with that being said, those 28 slaps are equivalent to one single round of boxing or MMA. That is, if about 28 punches is about an average amount landed in a round, I would say, give or take. I've seen fights where someone lands hundreds of punches in a single round, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in a full fight. And so we have rules and regulations that don't allow someone to hit someone else as hard as they can. You can't club, flinch, or step. And what that means is you can't club with the hard karate chop part of your hand. You have to slap from the palm to the fingers. This tough, like part right here, this tough part right here, those are not allowed to land. It cannot extend past the chin. This is still okay to land. These parts of the hand are still okay to land because you're going to get slapped in the face. But the idea is you're not going to like push up that bone and then club someone with it to their jaw on either side like this. It's going to actually be a flat slap that doesn't extend past the chin. And that way, you don't get as many ear shots or neck shots to the carotid. And you can't step. In all martial arts, in almost all martial arts, you're taught to step, pivot, and you're not allowed to do that. So you cannot generate the extra amount of force that's typically needed to knock somebody out. Knockouts still happen. Crazy stuff still happens.
I've seen some
Yeah.
of it, and it's like, I did
Mhm.
not realize that humans slapped that hard.
I know,
Honestly.
and it's
Just to
brutal.
slap knock people out.
Yeah, and it's brutal and it's crazy, and
Mhm.
it is, and it should be taken seriously. And any impact to the brain will give you CTE. But personally, like me personally, I would I would have a slap fight career before I would have a football career. That's just me personally, like and that's because I've been in the slap fight world, like I know. But the point is that while these guys are crazy and they're amazing and they're smacking each other in the face, I'm having like some of my dearest friends are in slap fight. Some of the smartest people I know are in slap fight. Some of the best martial artists I know are in slap fight, and it's really just kind of like another branch of martial arts, like almost any other martial art that I've dealt with, whether that be jujitsu or kickboxing or Muay Thai. It's like there's a different group for it. It's got different rules. It's got different regulations, and as long as everybody's safe and happy, which in our organization they are, then that's what matters to me and to JT and to the rest of the organization. And we like there's other slap fighting organizations that we've partnered with over the years and that we've out and like ours personally, the only thing I'll say on that is ours personally, we value very much the safety and rules. And I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying that like we do know it's crazy and unsafe, and that's why it's so important for us to have a no stepping rule and a no clubbing rule, while other organizations are more lenient on those things. And that's fine, that's their choice. We just personally keep those rules pretty down pat to try to negate the damage.
So something else I learned about following you, like I never heard of the slap fighting until I started following you on Facebook, and then Karjitsu. I actually got more like excited
Yeah,
and
I've
like
just heard of
interested in
Karjitsu. Is that a real
Karjitsu.
thing?
Yeah, so that's something else. Is this story is so crazy. Once we started doing slap fight, we partnered with Pro League Network, and over time, like JT was thinking of like doing other wacky, crazy sports because he's always done like different sporting events. He's done so much throughout his life, combat sports related and non-combat sports related. And but in the combat sports world, he's done, whenever I went to his events, there would be kickboxing fights, MMA fights, jiu-jitsu fights. And so once we started doing slap fight, which is an extreme sport, he started thinking about other extreme sports. And so Pro League, we partnered up with Pro League Network, and the guy who was somewhat like he was doing Karjitsu, and he came and competed in our event. And from then, we just started making more Karjitsu videos, and JT came up with different rules to kind of like make the match more fair and to kind of get rid of some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Like what I guess holes in the rules. So like for instance, over time, the competitors will like bend the rules in whatever like ways they can in order to get an advantage, as they should. But there was one point where people were climbing out of the car and standing on top of the car and just having a jiu-jitsu match on top of the car.
Oh,
And
wow.
then there were people just opening the doors and jumping out of the car and all of that stuff. And so he's definitely advanced the rules over time, along with us and everybody else in the company, to just like make sure that it's fair and that it's competitive and that it's still exciting and that it's proper jujitsu inside of a car. And
How
we've
did
come
that
up,
even come about, though?
well, I think the the thing with karjitsu is that like it's one of those things that everybody's done and you don't realize it. Like if you have siblings and you've been in a car with them waiting on mom at the grocery store, like you've done some karjitsu. And so we did our first event with a guy who had like done some karjitsu matches before. And then we put our guys in there as well and had our first event. And from then it's just been, okay, how do we make this a sport? How do we take this from being just doing jiu-jitsu in a car as grown-ups instead of children to a sport? And so a lot of the same IBJJF jiu-jitsu rules were applied, and a lot of the car can be used to your advantage. But of course, the safety of the competitors is super important. So like while they're wrapping each other up in like seat belts and all of that jazz, we're not letting them like grab a piece of glass or something, or like smack each other with the oh crap handle or anything like that. Just jujitsu. But that's become one of my favorites. And we've come up with a lot of other sports that are still in development too. And recently on ESPN, we just got karjitsu and ultimate tire wrestling on there. And ultimate tire wrestling is another game and another sport that JT came up with, where back in the day at his gym, everybody would just, like wrestle each other and try to dunk each other into the tires. And it's a great way to develop wrestling, but also wrestling defense and wrestling offense and defense. And so then we're sitting around like trying to figure out these wacky other sports we can do. And it's like, no, let's do tire wrestling. And so ESPN picked up tire wrestling too. And we're just off being the MTV of extreme combat sports.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
Like I said, I had never heard of the karjitsu thing until Deadpool and Wolverine came out. And that was the first time I'd heard. That was something that I thought, the genius of Ryan Reynolds just for the movie.
Well, yeah.
Now I know. Thank you. Thank you for setting me straight.
No. I didn't set anybody straight, but I was watching that movie, and as you know, I'm as like the first, how the first 30 minutes of this interview proved, like I'm a huge comic book nerd, and I used to be DC versus Marvel, but now I love it all. And so like watching Deadpool, that's one of my favorite movie series, especially Wolverine and Logan. And so to be able to like be there just watching the movie, just having the incredible time that I was having already, and then they start fighting in the car. I was sitting there and I just thought to myself, like, don't put yourself into this. Like, don't let your ego go running away with you here and think that they're doing a karjitsu match. They're not. They're just fighting in a car. Like, it's not everything's about you in karjitsu. And then I was literally like, but if he seatbelt chokes him, I'll know it's karjitsu. And then he seatbelt choked him, shot by shot, how one of our submissions has happened in the past. And I was like, that's it. That's karjitsu. And since then it's been so wild. It's like been a fever dream. There was Aemon Targaryen from Game of Thrones. He was in a music video and all they did was karjitsu, like actual karjitsu, like same camera angles and seatbelt chokes and no strikes and everything. And it's been a fever dream, but it's been incredible.
So one of the things that you do, one of many things you do so well, is editing. When did you realize that editing was something you like to do? And how did you go about getting better and better at it? Did you study YouTube videos, or how did you figure out how to edit things?
Well, I my dad got my family a Mac. I think it's a Mac Studio. I can't remember. It was the all-in-one Apple computer that came with iMovie. And so when we got that, I just thought that was like incredible. And it was for the time. And I had my iPod. And so I was like, how do I make movies? And whenever my dad like came home with it, he was like, it has an editing software, because he always knew I was into that. And he was always helping me with that. And they had bought me like webcams and stuff, like cheap webcams and stuff to film on. But like by the time that we actually got them and started using them, the frame rate was like literally like 2 frames a second. Like it would literally just be huge. Like it was just, it wasn't even a video camera, but we would still like film videos on it and stuff. It's just not, I would never post them. And then when he brought that home, like little me was just flabbergasted, I guess. And so I started recording the like movies we wanted to make on my iPod at the time. And then I would just like upload them to the computer and figure out how to edit them in iMovie. And iMovie is much easier to bring out like basics editing software. And then from there, I learned it also had Final Cut Pro, which is like Apple's exclusive editing software. And so that was very much like iMovie, just on steroids. And so I edited, I think, my first few videos and movies in iMovie. And then for Batman, The Killing Joke, I learned how to use Final Cut Pro. And then whenever I went to high school, I got in the GOB TV program. And my teacher was awesome. And even though we were always doing like, I guess, more media central things, she would always, encourage me and encourage us to make movie-like videos and movie-like commercials and stuff like that. And so I got a lot of great experience going with her and the other students to competitions like STN, which is Student Television Network. And that was kind of my first entryway into what film competitions or film festivals might be like, except for it was more around kind of like television. And that helped me a ton in like pressure and editing and working as a team and experiencing so much of America and like those crazy, awesome ways as a kid. And then when I went to college, in college, they taught us how to use Premiere Pro, which is kind of the industry standard editing software behind Avid. And then DaVinci Resolve came out, which is amazing for coloring and I think some visual effects, and their editing has gotten really good too. And so the entryway to that software is free. And so I think the school wanted to switch over to that. But then whenever we did, we all got the pro versions of it that were the full paid versions. And it just became my favorite software in general for editing movies and stuff. So I still use Premiere, and I can use the other editing softwares. I still use iMovie on my iPhone, but editing's just something I had to learn in order to get the movies made, because it's literally where the movie's actually made. Like, you can film a movie, but you're never going to have a movie unless it's edited. And you can make a movie just by editing and not filming, So like even back in the day, you could just take the film strip and draw stuff on the film strip, and there you have your movie. But so it's just, that's it. It wasn't something I liked, but my dad growing up was like, "You're really good at making movies, but you're really good at editing." And then we didn't realize at the time that that's essentially the same thing, but that's like the final part of the movie. That's where it really all comes together.
Do you have any advice for young or people who are new to the industry wanting to get through the level of editing, producing, all of that? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, the best thing that I can say is to just do it and go online and research and be patient with yourself and be patient with the process. But once you research, you need to actually do it. Doing it is the most important part. Doing it is more important than researching it, because you can learn all you want with no execution. And so much of my life in film has just been executing with no knowledge whatsoever of how to do anything. Like, that's all the first few Batmans are. And now, because of that, I have a better understanding of how to do it. So just be patient with yourself and learn from people who are smarter than you. And even though it feels like it's a competition, it's not, like, your only competition is yourself. And to just be patient and trust the process and do it. Just go out and do the movie, go out and do the project. Because that's experience is number one. Experience is number one. And the networking from that experience is number one. Number one. So that's what I would say. Just be patient and do it. And do it cheap if you can. A lot of the world makes you think you've got to pay a lot of money to do stuff, and you don't. DaVinci Resolve is free. DaVinci Resolve iMovie is free. DaVinci Resolve is one of the greatest editing softwares in the world. Go and get it for free. And then if you really want something else, save up money over however long it takes you, and then make a one-time payment for it forever, So that's what I would do. And learning online and through books, and not ads. Don't learn through ads. That's we're deep into some advice now, but that is like, don't click on ads.
Well, you're Will the Wise.
No.
So, you're so deep. I mean,
Well, I'm wise from getting scammed so much. So I'm telling you not to do it.
For your up-and-coming projects, like after you do the next Batman film, are you going to stay in the superhero genre, or are you going to branch out?
I am done with fan films after this next Batman. I'm done making them. I'll act in them. I'll help in them. I'll do whatever. I love movies and I love fan films. And now I see fan films as movies, because they're just from a perspective that's like so much more independent and with no help from it. Literally, a fan film means like I'm getting no help from studios.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If I love superheroes, I love all movies, and I would work on almost all movies. But as far as making fan films, this is the last fan film I'm gonna helm and make. And but if a studio ever approaches me and wants me to make another, I'd love to. But as far as fan films go, this is the last one that I'm gonna put my own neck out on, I guess.
So speaking of fan films, we're gonna now we can jump into Voorhees.
Yeah.
So we're Amy Lynn and I are obviously huge horror fans. We're doing a podcast called the Unnamed Horror Podcast, for Pete's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Was you a horror movie fan? Was it like, for you, was it like, oh God, I get to be in a Jason movie, or was it just I get to be in a movie? Like, what was you like looking at Jason on in front of you going, holy crap, that's Jason, and it was really cool to you? Or was it just, oh, it's just another movie?
It was both, because I have such a deep respect for nostalgia and like icons and pop culture like that, you know? So whenever even though I personally did not see Voorhees as a fan film. I saw it as the next iteration in the Friday the 13th franchise, because the rights to that franchise are so frozen right now. And so when Jason Pitts was going to come out and make it like a proper 80s, like fun, you know, Voorhees Friday the 13th movie, I was super down and had a great time doing it. And I felt like the experience was so reminiscent of old 80s horror films. I don't know, of course, I don't know what it was like to act on them, but like whenever I was watching the movie back and whenever I was working on it, it felt like we were making one of those old 80s movies, you know. It was like whenever you see the behind the scenes of old Friday the 13th movies, and you know, the props and the goofiness and the like excitement and the like hilariosity, I guess, between takes, like that was all there, you know. But whenever it was time to scream and cry, you just turn it on. But it was fun. It was like a sleepover every night with like 50 people, you
It
know.
definitely was.
You know, it was like a massive bonding experience. It just felt like a family. And so that was just a lot of fun, and it was equally yay, like I get to lead in a feature Friday the 13th movie, and I get to go off against Jason Voorhees, and like James Stokes is playing him, and I get to act with all these amazing people. So those were just like lifelong friendships and relationships that'll just last forever, and that we just keep making movies together, and we'll continue to do so. But it's important we always take care of each other and respect each other and love on each other respectfully, and just always push the envelope as far as, you know, like movie production and like, I guess, like the things we should be doing and stuff goes. So it was just a ton of fun. And then it was so successful. It has like over 600,000 views on YouTube. And the only reason it doesn't have more is because it got demonetized. It got age restricted. And I have no clue how it made it so far without getting age restricted. I have no clue how it took them 600,000 views to realize there was a ton of gore and nudity in this one.
Yeah.
Just like all other Friday the 13th movies. But literally,
I thought it would get flagged for that right away, honestly.
Yeah, but it was a great success, and it was amazing, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. And immediately after it came out, they started developing a Voorhees TV show. So it was like it reawoken the fan. It felt like it reawoken or whatever, however you say it, the fan base, and that like it just got the wheels turning again. And I hope that the show is great. And I'll be tuning in, but the feeling of Voorhees just really felt straight out of the 80s with friends, just like watching a good fun horror movie, you know.
The acting in that movie. So I've from like 2020 until today, I've gotten on this like ridiculous binge of watching every fan film I could find. If it's a franchise that I like I don't just go watch random ones, but any
Sure.
Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, any Child's Play, any Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan film I can find, I'm watching because I love those franchises. And there are some really good ones, and there are some really bad ones. But even the really good ones don't seem to have great acting. Because I mean, it's it's usually like friends and family going to make these movies.
Yeah.
This one felt different because this one, like you and Olivia and Kelly Lane and James and Xavier Woods was so good, or not Woods. I'm sorry,
And
Xavier
Sierra
Jones.
was awesome as well.
Who?
Sierra Ebert.
Oh yes, Sierra. Yeah, I'm going
Hey,
through all, trying to
just
go through pretty
joking.
much all of them. It's Sierra and
Yeah,
Buddy
there
and
the
and
acting in it was phenomenal.
what's the guy's name? The store owner, Stu, the guy that played Stu. It was hilarious. So the
Barney.
acting in this movie was just so good.
Yeah, thank you. They were incredible. And I really think it's that, we've been treating movies, or we've been trying to treat movies like proper movies instead of just fan films. And that was definitely the vibe on Voorhees. Voorhees did not feel like a fan film. It felt like a regular, like low budget horror film, or not a regular one, but like how one would have been in the 80s, And I know we're not shooting on film and all that, but like the feeling, like we were all in those clothes, we were really out in the middle of nowhere in a town that like refused to age, and it was great. Like it was
He
just
isn't
awesome.
exaggerating, Aaron. It's the truth,
Yeah,
man.
it was just awesome. It was like we were in a time capsule for a week, and like
It was.
your only job in the world was make movie, and it was awesome.
Sierra had that great line in the movie. So would we go through a time vortex or something? Like as soon as they pull up to you all pull up to the gas station.
And that might have been in the script. I think it was, but like that was truly how we felt. That was really how it was like.
I think I heard you talk about this in another interview, but one of my favorite lines in the movie is when the Bigfoot falls in the ground in front of you and Olivia's character, and you go, "Is that a fucking Sasquatch?" And for some reason, you said people just started laughing when they heard it. I laughed the first time I heard it too, but that I know Jason wrote the line, but the way you deliver it was just hilarious. And maybe it wasn't meant to be, but it was just funny.
Thank you. No, that was me and Olivia spent a lot of time trying to figure out like how do we want certain dialogue to sound, because so much of the movie is like doom and gloom that we had to somewhat be self-aware to know like when the comedic relief needed to be in there. And so like, even though our characters are just completely entrenched in what's happening and everything, me and her as people acting as those characters were like, they're being a little melodramatic right now, and this is a really wacky night for them. So like, I would say that like I'm just fed up with life, and like of course now there's a Bigfoot in front of me. Like I've been telling you this is what's gonna happen,
Did we lose Aaron again?
Huh?
Did we lose Aaron again?
Yeah, he's here in spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, I know like Night of the Beast was the one you and I met on. I think that was our first project together.
Yeah, I think so. But I feel like I don't know if Bryn already knew you or if you met Bryn afterwards or what. But I know that Bryn knew you too.
Oh no, I did. I worked with her on another project.
Okay.
One thing got cut out of it, but that's how I met Bryn.
Okay, word. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's how that goes sometimes.
Oh yeah, it happens. It's part of the industry.
It literally is. It literally is. I've had whole scenes cut.
Mm-hmm.
I've had whole action scenes cut,
Oh yeah. So do you have I can't even talk, sorry. Do you have a genre that you're thinking about dipping your toes into possibly in the future?
Yes. I think there's three. My upcoming movies even Batman Court of Owls is in pre-production. I'm writing the script on it. And I think I don't think, some casting's already taken place. And the next immediate movie that I'm making is a short film called Gamba, and it stars Xavier Jones from Voorhees.
Oh, I love him.
And
He is so talented.
So yeah, he's amazing, and he's going to carry this one. Even though the rest of the cast is unbelievable as well. The rest of the cast has CJ and Marks Mitchell. I don't know if Marks knows it yet, but he should. And
if not, surprise.
Yeah, and that's one that I've actually been working on for a long time and have been waiting for the right season and the right time in my life to film. And so it's finally here, and I'll be filming that this fall, and hopefully that'll be coming out this spring and summer. But then, like, you know, now that I've got a lot of Batman written, it's just almost good to go, and the filming of Batman might start very soon within the next few months as well, just to get the ball rolling on it. And so to answer, and then after that, I want to make a return to two different genres. The first one being horror. I want to follow in the footsteps to some degree, and maybe do another horror movie. And then after that, I really want to do a Western. I would love to do. Cool. I'd love to do a Western where Charlie filmed Whispers, or, you know, maybe somewhere else. We'll see. But those are kind of the three genres that I'm looking forward to coming up, is sports and boxing, and horror and Western.
Westerns are cool. I used to not like Westerns when I was younger. I thought they were boring. And as I got older, I watched some with my mother one night. I'm like, these aren't so bad. And then, like, The Unforgiven is one of my favorite movies of all time now. So it's, you know, Westerns would be cool.
They have a place. And there's certain I've just been hanging out with like Brent's family a lot, and they are just like, I kind of view them as cowboys. And whenever we're hanging out, like at our grandparents or somewhere else, like they'll just be watching Westerns. And my brother like loves Westerns too. And I love Westerns. And I forgot about my love for them. And then, you know, you remember back to some of my favorite movies like True Grit and 3:10 to Yuma and all of those. And even one that was more recent with Christian Bale that I'm forgetting the name of right now. But like, there's just some Westerns that have not really been tapped. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Like, just the first 30 minutes of that movie, I wanted to be a 2-hour movie. And so I think I would like to do a Western that's reminiscent of the old ones, but I think people kind of run into the mistake of making it too long, maybe too boring or too modern. And I just want to make sure it's a tight-knit, good, atmospheric movie that has got like a really powerful, punchy Western story.
I think the one thing I started liking about Westerns is the majority of them have almost it's not horror, obviously, but it has sort of horror vibes, and then it has a very dark sense of humor through most of those movies.
Yeah.
Like, there's comedy in them, but you just have to like really be paying attention because it's really dark humor. It's not, you know, funny stuff for the most part. It's, you know, somebody's brutally shot down in the streets and somebody says a line and just kind of goes, oh, well, that's kind of funny, or where did that come from, kind of thing. And I never noticed that as a kid. I just noticed kind of walking around in the Wild West with dust flying everywhere and horses. And I'm just like, okay, I like horses, but this is boring. But then as I got older, I kind of started to recognize more and more just how good they could be. Especially if you get good enough actors on them.
Yeah, my favorite Western ever that has stuff like that in it is Tombstone. And Tombstone is a movie that was hilarious to me and emotional to me, but also really scary to me because, like, you're right. And you know, it's also something like I'm an Arkansan, so like, you know, there is stuff about like our culture and like, you know, I guess like Western heritage that like I can speak on and that I'd like to make a movie about. And thinking back to movies like that, it's like, you know, there's a lot of aspects of religion and all sorts of stuff. But like in Tombstone and other Westerns, and I'm a Christian, I'm a religious person, but there's like it always struck me that in Westerns, whenever dark stuff would happen, it would, you know, it would have like religious undertones, you know, like whether you shoot a guy and win a duel and then bury him and like, you know, read him a Bible verse or something. Like there's a lot to be talked about, and there's a lot of crazy like dynamics and locations and stories and movies and stuff that you can talk about in modern day from the Western genre that has just kind of been lost. Because I think whenever people like do it now, they are kind of trying to remake older Westerns instead of, and maybe like give them newer, I guess, like social talking points instead of just like telling like a good story, you know, just a really good actual realistic story that is realistic to the time or even inspired by the time or whatever.
Yeah, now that you mentioned Tombstone, I cannot believe I forgot Tombstone. That's another one, Tombstone Unforgiven. Like,
Yeah,
you almost
same.
don't even have to be a Western fan to like Tombstone because the characters are so good and so well, the acting's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a huge Billy Bob Thornton fan. I'd seen that movie 20 times before I realized it was him in the saloon getting the crap slapped out of him by Kurt Russell, or was it Val Kilmer?
Well, it's right now me figuring out that was him. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that I didn't know it either. So yeah.
It was before Sling Blade, before I knew who he was when I saw it the first time. But then I've seen it, like I said, 100 times since then. I'm like, that guy looks from one day. One day I was watching with my nephew. My nephew was like, "You know who that is, right?" And I'm like, "No." And he told me, I'm like, "Holy crap! How did I not notice that?"
Yeah, that's awesome. I had no clue, but Billy Bob's from Arkansas, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. That's Tombstone will be one that I rewatch whenever I bulk up to do the Western.
So I guess the movie you're currently editing right now, you're the one tasked with getting Jason Pitt's movie, The Forest Through the Trees, ready for the world to see. Are you not?
Yep, I am. So that is the biggest movie project that I'm working on right now, is just editing The Forest Through the Trees. So that's been going really well, and we finally have like a full cut of the movie together, and it's looking great, and the performances are insane, and it has a lot of this what I loved about Voorhees, but a lot that's new and a lot that is not in Voorhees at all.
Definitely not.
That is
Definitely
very much in this. It has a much more different and serious tone and vibe in some parts, and some others that I feel are kind of like fun and like 80s horror movie, you know, but then some I'm like, some is just horror movie, you know. some is just horror movie. Some is just scary horror movie. And some is like, oh, that was fun. That was cool.
Yeah, and it also, there was a lot of mind bending in it, a lot of psychological stuff in it.
Right. And yeah, that's a right. That's a lot of what I think I'm kind of talking on, is that this movie feels a lot darker. Yeah, this
100%.
movie
I think
feels
100%,
a lot
honestly.
darker. Yeah. No, it definitely does. She's right. And it does have fun in it. Like it does have, fun action and really fun scenes and performances. Like I have fun watching it, but there's also scenes where I'm watching it and I'm like, ugh, that sucks for that person.
I think we lost Aaron again.
Yeah, it's okay. Me and you will just continue on the show.
So how are those notes working out for you? I heard the script supervisor is a bit of a nut job.
I didn't hear that. No, they're good. I just like looking at your handwriting for whenever I need inspiration. I'll just look at the funny notes that you wrote down and those keep me going. Most of the time I don't typically need them because like I'll be able to kind of tell like which take is the best or what scene we're on or like what needs to come next. But yeah, if I like need to remember what prop is being supposed to be used in this shot instead of this shot or yada yada, or who is acting a certain way that day, I can just always look down and view your notes. Yeah, and that part was a joke, by the way. That last part was a joke. I will not be talking about who is acting, who you wrote down about. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah.
Like
did you appear on camera any in this film?
I can't say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's some of the stuff we're not allowed to divulge.
I cannot say. I can't say. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, no.
If I do, it's unintentional. Say that.
Oh, so Will, this has been awesome, man. Thank you for coming on. I didn't want to keep you forever. We've had you for almost an hour and a half now.
Yeah, but, my pleasure.
I can't wait to see the new Batman movie. I love the first two or first three, I guess. Yeah, this will be your fourth one, right? I'm doing my math right.
Holy cow! Yeah, I forget too. Don't worry about it. I told myself one, and here we are 4 later.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're watching this and you haven't, go check out Voorhees. It's apparently, I did not know it was age restricted on YouTube, but like you said, it's about time. I don't know what
it is now. It is now.
I don't know what took a year, but okay. But if you're over 18, go watch it because it's worth it. And I can't believe the first 20 minutes of the certain scene that happened 20 minutes into the movie didn't get age restricted like immediately.
Can I tell a story before we hop off?
Yeah, absolutely.
As we sign out. Okay. So the names of the family members shall be kept anonymous, but this is too funny not to share. So I come home one day and I'm talking to my grandparents. And they're so proud of me. They love me so much. They're so good to me. So they call their family members, more of their family members, and they say, Will's just come out with a great new Friday the 13th movie. You guys should absolutely watch it. So they gathered up all the kids and all their friends and all the youngsters and gathered them in the house to watch Will's new movie. And then something happens to Will's roommate in the movie that no child should ever see. And the movie was then turned off with children screaming in horror. And that will likely be the last time any of them ever watch a movie of mine ever again. And I'm like embarrassed, but kind of honored in the way of that's a good scene. Like we've traumatized some children. Like you did it. Like you made a good horror movie, you know?
You made a Friday the 13th movie because they used to traumatize kids all the time back in the 80s.
That's what I'm talking about. This will be looked back on as a pleasant memory. A pleasant, funny thing. I'm so sorry, family. I love y'all. I'll act in some Hallmark movies soon, God willing, and get on some Lifetime movies and just like do some Christian movie work and just like realign myself with my morality and make
You might
up
want
for
to
that.
avoid Lifetime movies then, because they've become pretty much like
I know.
suspense horror movies too.
I know. I'm walking in and my mom is watching Unsolved Hallmark, you know? So who knows? I'll read the script. I'm just joking.
Oh, that's a good way to end it, man. That was a great story. Again, thank you, Will, for coming on. It was awesome getting to talk to you. And you've done so much, and you got so much more coming. You're still so freaking young. I feel like such an old person because you're still so freaking young.
We're all young.
I don't even want to hear that.
No, we're all young. Y'all all just come join the set. We're all the same.
Good luck with the slap fighting. Hopefully it continues to just keep going up and up. And the car jitsu, which I'm freaking addicted to now. I think it's great. I love that stuff.
Thank you so much. Thank y'all. We really appreciate it. It for real. Like it means the world being on here and talking about everything. But all the guys at Slap Fight and Car Jitsu and BFC and PLN and JT, we're all super passionate and love the fans and really appreciate it. So like we go for, you know, you guys. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, man. It's great to talk to you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Keep an eye out for Forest Through the Trees. Follow it on Facebook if you're not. And should be, Jason has been saying, hopefully sometime by the end of the year, it'll be out where people can see it. And there'll be screenings throughout Arkansas.
I will say, I think as far as release dates go, we are targeting a late fall release date for Forest.
Okay, cool. So yeah, sometime this year before the end of the year, that would be awesome.
Hopefully, we'll see, or at least maybe for early festivals. We'll see.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time. Don't know who the guest's going to be yet, but we'll figure it out. We kind of just play this by ear. Have a few different ones lined up. I just don't know which one's going to be next, but we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much, Will, and bye-bye.
Thank you all so much. Bye.
Bye.